A Gulf War Army veteran convicted of a quadruple murder in Okaloosa County is set to be executed any moment now. Geoffrey Hutchinson was convicted in 2001 for the murder of his girlfriend and her 3 children in Crestview in 1998. Hutchinson is set to be the 4th person executed in Florida this year. Governor Ron DeSantis signed the death warrant for Hutchinson last month.
Yesterday, the Florida Supreme Court rejected arguments that Hutchinson should be spared from lethal injection. Tanner Stewart is in the studio now with a look back at the murders he committed.
That execution is scheduled to begin right now at 5 p.m. Governor Ron DeSantis said earlier this week there's no reason to believe the execution won't go through today. Geoffrey Hutchinson has now sat on death row for almost 24 years.
He may have taken him away from us, but we'll never forget him.
On September 11th, 1998, Geoffrey Hutchinson left home for a bar in Okaloosa County after a fight with his girlfriend, Renee Flaherty. He later returned home with a 12-gauge shotgun and murdered Flaherty and her 3 kids. Hutchinson confessed to killing them in a 911 call, but later said it was a setup. Prosecutors say Hutchinson made countless attempts to stall the trial.
I did not kill Renee and the kids, and I believe I was framed.
The evidence is overwhelming of his guilt.
The medical examiner revealed during the trial that it's likely 2 of the children witnessed their mother being killed before their lives were taken. It's believed older brother Geoffrey saw the horror before he was killed. Flaherty's mother, Melva Elmore, and her brother Wesley spoke to WEAR in 1998 at the funerals for the family.
Geoffrey was a really smart kid. And Amanda she was a typical girl, loved girl stuff, Barbie stuff. And Logan, he was just a bundle of energy.
I don't understand either how he could take their lives. My daughter, he was mad at her and take her life. But why the children? Why not let them live?
Hutchinson's family and friends say he suffered from Gulf War syndrome and bipolar disorder. Hutchinson was an Army Ranger and combat veteran. His son told WEAR shortly after the murder his behavior was unpredictable.
He just had sudden mood swings. Same happens to me and stuff. It's like one minute you're all calm and the next minute you're getting really mad. I'm kind of sad because, I don't want my dad to be in jail, but he should be in jail and have some psychiatric help.
Others say there was never reason to believe Hutchinson would hurt Flaherty or her kids.
They did everything together just like I do with my kids. There was no, you're not my kids type deal. It was just, you would have thought they were all his kids. That's the way he treated them, and that's the way they all acted.
I haven't slept much. What
do you think about?
I think about a 3-letter question that I'm going to take to my grave. Why?
He knew exactly what he did. He murdered children, and he murdered a woman in cold blood.
This week, Governor Ron DeSantis says Geoffrey Hutchinson's criminal history leaves no doubt he is where he belongs.
We think he's murdered other people beyond that, but obviously he got sentenced for this. So the death penalty is the appropriate punishment for somebody that's committed crimes this heinous.
Florida uses a single drug, pentobarbital, in its lethal injection process. The executioner is a private citizen paid $150 per execution. They're chosen by the warden, and they can remain anonymous under state law. There are now 273 inmates after Geoffrey Hutchinson on Florida's death row. In the studio, I'm Tanner Stewart.
September 11, 1998, Gulf War veteran Geoffrey Hutchinson called 911 and said, "I just shot my family." Police arrived at his Crestview, Florida home to find his girlfriend Renee Flaherty, 32, and her 3 children, Geoffrey age 9, Amanda age 7, and Logan just 4 years old, all shot to death with a 12-gauge shotgun. Hutchinson claimed Gulf War syndrome and mental illness drove him to murder, but after 27 years on death row, Florida executed him on May 1, 2025, making him one of the longest-serving death row inmates in state history. September 11, 1998. Crestview, Florida. A small panhandle town was about to become the scene of one of the most shocking family murders in Florida history. Geoffrey Glenn Hutchinson, a 35-year-old Gulf War veteran, would kill 4 people in a single night, his girlfriend and her 3 young children. On September 11, 1998, Hutchinson, an Army veteran who had fought in the Gulf War, shot and killed his 32-year-old live-in girlfriend Renee Flaherty, along with her 3 children, Geoffrey, aged 9, Amanda, aged 7, and Logan, aged 4. What happened that night would leave a community devastated, raise questions about PTSD and Gulf War syndrome, and result in one of the longest death row cases in Florida history. Geoffrey Hutchinson had served in the U.S. Army during the Gulf War. Like many veterans, he returned home changed by his experiences. Former Deer Park resident Geoffrey Hutchinson, a Gulf War veteran, had moved to Florida where he began a relationship with Renee Flaherty, a single mother of 3. Renee and Geoffrey had been living together with her 3 children, Geoffrey, Amanda, and Logan. By all accounts, it appeared to be a typical blended family trying to make life work. But on the night of September 11, 1998, something went terribly wrong. On the night of September 11, 1998, in the panhandle town of Crestview, Florida, Hutchinson had an argument with his girlfriend, Renee Flaherty, and left to go to a bar, court records show. A bartender recalled that Hutchinson made remarks about their argument, drank some beer and then left abruptly. The argument between Geoffrey and Renee that night appeared to be the trigger for what would follow. Geoffrey left their home and went to a nearby bar, where witnesses would later testify that he drank beer and made comments about his relationship troubles. But Hutchinson didn't stay at the bar long. According to witnesses, he left abruptly after drinking. He returned home to the house he shared with Renee and her 3 children. What happened next would shock investigators who had seen many crime scenes in their careers. A short time later, a male caller told a 911 operator, "I just shot my family," from the house Hutchinson and Flaherty shared with the 3 children, 9-year-old Geoffrey, 7-year-old Amanda, and 4-year-old Logan. All were killed with a 12-gauge shotgun that was found on a kitchen counter. The 911 call came approximately 40 minutes after the bartender had last seen Hutchinson leave the bar. The male voice on the call was later identified as Geoffrey Hutchinson. His confession was immediate and direct. "I just shot my family." When police arrived at the Crestview home, they found a scene of unimaginable horror. All 4 victims had been shot with a 12-gauge shotgun. The weapon was found on the kitchen counter, left there by Hutchinson after he made the 911 call. The victims were found throughout the home. His execution concludes a decades-long legal process following his conviction for the 1998 shotgun murders of his live-in girlfriend, Renee Flaherty, and her 3 young children, Geoffrey, 9, Amanda, 7, and Logan, 4. Renee Flaherty, 32 years old, was killed in the home she had shared with Hutchinson. The mother of 3 young children had no way to protect herself or her kids from the man she had been living with. Geoffrey, just 9 years old, was the oldest of the children. Amanda was 7. Logan was only 4 years old, barely more than a toddler. All 3 children were shot and killed with the same shotgun that killed their mother. The brutality of the crime shocked even experienced homicide investigators. This wasn't a crime of passion in the traditional sense. This was the methodical killing of 4 people, including 3 defenseless children. Geoffrey Hutchinson was arrested at the scene. He didn't flee. He didn't resist. He had called 911 himself and was waiting when police arrived. During initial questioning, Hutchinson's statements to police would become crucial evidence in his trial. He admitted to the killings but would later claim he had been suffering from mental health issues that impaired his judgment. The investigation revealed no prior history of domestic violence between Hutchinson and Renee. There had been no previous police calls to the residence. The argument that night appeared to be the first indication of serious problems in their relationship. But the lack of prior incidents made the quadruple murder even more shocking. What could drive a man with no history of violence to suddenly murder his girlfriend and her 3 children? As the investigation continued, Geoffrey Hutchinson began developing the defense strategy that would define his trial and appeals for the next 27 years. He claimed that his military service during the Gulf War had left him with serious mental health issues. During his trial, Hutchinson claimed diminished responsibility due to alcohol intoxication and mental disorders like the Gulf War syndrome in his defense. Gulf War syndrome is a term used to describe a collection of symptoms experienced by veterans who served in the 1991 Gulf War. Symptoms can include fatigue, headaches, joint pain, cognitive difficulties, and in some cases, psychological issues. Hutchinson's defense team would argue that his mental state at the time of the murders was so impaired by Gulf War syndrome, PTSD, and alcohol that he should not be held fully responsible for his actions. But prosecutors would argue that regardless of his mental health issues, Hutchinson had planned and executed a quadruple murder, and that he deserved the ultimate punishment.
What's your emergency? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am? Yes? I just shot my family. Okay, sir, stay in line with me. Ma'am, I love my family.
This is what 911 dispatcher Angelique Yost Barrow heard the night of September 11, 1998. That's when Geoffrey Hutchinson allegedly killed his girlfriend Renee Flaherty and her 3 young children. Along with Barrow, prosecutor Bobby Elmore also questioned one of Hutchinson's friends, Joel Adams. Adams helped Elmore confirm that Hutchinson was the one who made the frantic 911 call.
Early in the tape, an individual says, "I just shot my family." Whose voice is that?
Sounds like Jeff Hutchinson.
One of the first Okaloosa County Sheriff's deputies to arrive on the murder scene was also questioned today. Deputy Larry Ward helped further the prosecution's case by stating Hutchinson was not only the first person found on the scene, but he was found holding a cordless phone still on the line with 911.
I checked for a pulse on the carotid artery. I noticed a strong pulse. And at that point, we secured the subject with handcuffs.
Called me and woke me up, told me that my friend just shot his wife and kids.
Tears ran down Deanna Adams' face this morning as she recalled the night of September 11, 1998. The day her friend, Geoffrey Hutchinson, allegedly shot his girlfriend Renee Flaherty and her 3 young children to death. Adams was another key witness for the prosecution. She helped State Attorney Bobby Elmore further confirm the voice on the 911 dispatch tape was that of the defendants.
Whose voice did you recognize on the tape as saying, "I just shot my family"?
Jeff.
When you say Jeff, are you speaking of the defendant, Geoffrey Hutchinson?
Yes, I am.
Elmore also exposed another interesting detail in his other witnesses today. 2 Okaloosa County Sheriff's deputies who took Hutchinson from the crime scene to the county jail both noticed something strange on his leg.
We had the nurse come out to my vehicle and we removed a white substance that was on the subject's leg. Had the nurse remove it.
It looked like a piece of I wasn't sure if it was tissue or a part of a skull.
Even the nurse who helped the deputies at the jail agreed with what the substance was.
What did it look like? Do you remember?
It was flesh.
For the first half of trial this morning, jurors were bombarded with confusing technical information on DNA analysis.
State's Exhibit 6 is a blood swab from the defendant's left thumb. You're A6.
Eventually, jurors were visually shown through overhead projections of the victims' bodies exactly what the DNA expert was talking about. State Attorney Bobby Elmore pointed out where each DNA sample was taken from and whose DNA it matched.
The cutting is a mixture with who?
Renee Flaherty is the major contributor.
All right.
Logan is the minor contributor.
Several samples were taken from the defendant, Geoffrey Hutchinson, one of them being the mysterious piece of tissue found on his left thigh.
That was possible tissue removed from the left leg of Jeff Hutchinson.
And
that was from, I obtained a DNA type that was from a male and matched the DNA profile from Geoffrey Flaherty at the non-genetic markers tested.
Other blood samples came from Hutchinson's feet, hands, shorts, and t-shirt. All of them matched the DNA of 6-year-old Geoffrey Flaherty, one of the 4 victims. Geoffrey Hutchinson's fate no longer lies in the hands of a jury. It's up to this man, Judge Robert Barron. Today he heard closing arguments in the penalty phase of Hutchinson's murder trial. Prosecutor Bobby Elmore is seeking the death penalty. Besides arguing aggravated child abuse, he also pointed out the gruesome death the children went through.
Anyone who looks at the photographs in this case of the views that those children were forced to see by Geoffrey Hutchinson during the commission of these murders knows that this crime was heinous, atrocious, and cruel.
Defense attorney Stephen Cobb argued Hutchinson was not in the right frame of mind the night of the murders.
We think that you need to look at the case as a whole, because in looking at this case as a whole, we see that in addition to any mental illness, there was a high alcohol level, what apparently would have been an intensely emotional domestic quarrel.
Hutchinson was given a chance to speak before the judge, but accepted with some different terms.
Your Honor, Mr. Hutchinson has indicated to Mrs. Cobb, who's indicated to me that he does wish to communicate with the court, but he does not wish to give testimony. He would like to address the court by letter.
Hutchinson's request was denied.
As to count 2, the first-degree murder of Geoffrey Flaherty, the court imposes a sentence of death, concurrent with counts 3 and 4.
In front of a packed courtroom today, including Geoffrey Hutchinson's parents, Okaloosa County Circuit Judge Robert Barron slowly read each of Hutchinson's 4 sentences. Although he received life in prison without parole for killing his girlfriend Renee Flaherty, he is getting the death penalty for murdering her 3 children. That's because the judge ruled the case for the death penalty was stronger in the children's murders. Judge Barron went through each of the factors that led him to his decision, including the prosecution's argument that 9-year-old Geoffrey Flaherty's death was a cruel crime.
One can only imagine the fear as he was shot in the chest and desperately trying to move away from the defendant, only to look back and see the barrel of the shotgun once again pointed toward him. Geoffrey Flaherty knew he was going to die in that moment, and the terror suffered in that moment is incomprehensible to this court.
Not even Hutchinson's claim that he suffers Gulf War syndrome helped him.
There has been no correlation between the murders of these victims and the defendant's diagnosis with Gulf War illness established. Therefore, the court acknowledges that this mitigator was established by the evidence, but this mitigating factor is only entitled to minimal weight.
When all was said and done, Hutchinson finally spoke before the court with one last surprising statement.
I did not kill Renee and the kids, and I believe I was framed.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson, for your...
I appreciate you putting up with me, Your Honor. I know I've been hard to put up with sometimes, but I appreciate it.
As 2025 approached, Geoffrey Hutchinson's execution was scheduled for May 1st. His attorneys made final desperate appeals to stop the execution. In Bradford County, attorneys are trying to convince the judge that Geoffrey Glenn Hutchinson should not be put to death. The final appeals focused on Hutchinson's current mental competency. His attorneys argued that after 27 years on death row, his mental health had deteriorated to the point where he could no longer understand why he was being executed, which would make executing him unconstitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that executing someone who doesn't understand why they're being executed violates the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. Hutchinson's attorneys argued this standard applied to their client. But courts rejected this argument as well. After psychiatric evaluations, judges determined that Hutchinson understood he was being executed and why. The execution would proceed as scheduled. On May 1, 2025, Geoffrey Glenn Hutchinson was executed by the state of Florida at Florida State Prison in Stark. He was 62 years old and had spent 27 years on death row, one of the longest periods between sentencing and execution in Florida history. Geoffrey Glenn Hutchinson, November 6, 1962 to May 1, 2025. According to reports, Hutchinson declined to make a final statement. He was executed by lethal injection using Florida's execution protocol. The execution brought closure to a case that had spanned nearly 3 decades. But it also reignited debates about capital punishment, veterans' mental health, and how the justice system should handle defendants with service-connected PTSD. The victims' families had waited 27 years for justice. For them, Hutchinson's execution meant that he had finally been held accountable for murdering Renee Flaherty and her 3 children.